that for now. I'm gonna come over here, continue this. I'm gonna learn more.
And some of these, like the long one, there are special use cases for them. I'm not going to note for that. What's up? Make sure you extract it. Right click when you open it. Always open Windows 11, Windows 10 confused. So this is Windows.
Press pause, bro.
11, zip folder, right click, extract all. And for the online students who didn't hear the question, it's how to open a web once you download it. At this point, with float is when numbers become so insanely large that they're just shortened to the mathematical expression for what they are.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Okay, moving on to that after having those notes. In this day and age, especially for this course, you don't really have to worry about what type we're using. It's a good habit to get used to using a proper type for whatever you're trying to store. So if I were to give an example of a US phone number, there are multiple different ways to.
I think that's from Fortnite. What episode are we on? 17? Is that right? Okay. 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 How about now? Your work now? How about now? There we go. Okay. Let's just let's do this real quick while we're ready to.
And many of these street streaming gatherings are just the other side of the same coin. Now, some street streaming gatherings are formed organically from independent streamers, but we know that many are organized by agencies because there are hints in the footage that reveal this. For example, here the streamers are all using the same ring lights and nearly identical setups. You can also sometimes see tech support staff assisting the streamers. There's even a continuous red carpet that are laid out on the ground sometimes, indicating that the team had come and set this up beforehand for their streamers as part of an organized business operation. Regardless of how these gatherings form, there is something off-putting about them. They look almost dystopian, like something out of a Black Mirror episode.
Yes, it is.
One of the reasons it looks...
Yes, it is.
so jarring is because it juxtaposes a series of polar opposites that really shouldn't belong together. For instance, it juxtaposes the appearance of wealth and fame to poverty and obscurity. These streamers are all dressed in
And you can see that, like, there are some guys, but it's like a 10-to-1 ratio.
glamorous clothing, with beautiful makeups, in front of spotlights and cameras, as if they are celebrities. Yet in reality, they are out on the street, like homeless beggars. It also juxtaposes human connections and loneliness. On one side, viewers from all around the country are connecting intimately with their favorite streamers, a modern miracle.
And also, these girls, a lot of them use, like, face filters and all kinds of other shit, too. Like, they might look one way, but, like, whenever you see them on camera, it's totally different. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, exactly. And super filtered. Yeah, they've got AI filters and all this other stuff. No, I'm not going to name any names. Like, there are some girls, like, you will meet them and, like, damn, this bitch is hot, right? Like, she actually looks the way she does on the camera. But, like, a lot of them, like, I've had situations where it was like, who is this? What's your name? I don't even recognize you.
By the internet. On the other side, everyone is alone. Most viewers are probably in a room by themselves staring at a screen, while the streamers sit just inches apart from each other, yet never interact. Everyone is locked in the prison of their digital worlds, appearing to connect, yet never really do. It juxtaposes collectivism and individualism as well. China has a collectivist culture, after all. So, by and large, people prioritize social cohesion and group well-being above their personal ambition. These street gatherings seem to trend towards this kind of collectivism. Everyone is sitting in front of the same equipment while doing the same things. It looks like they are one unit, working towards a common goal.
I think the problem really is that it's so inauthentic. Like, why would somebody watch or, like, get attached to this whenever they realize that it's like, you know, are you going to get attached to, like, you know, the dairy cow number 943 on the farm? Probably not. And so I think a lot of these people, they go into it, and this is the other big reason why, is that my understanding is that China has, like, another similar problem that we have, where a lot of people have high unemployment. It's hard to get a job. And you have people even in China, and this is also true in other Asian countries, that have basically just totally given up on life because they realize that they can never gain employment in a way that's, like, meaningful. And so, yeah, wealth inequality is going hard, like, everything like that's going super hard.
But the reality is quite the opposite. It's hyper-individualistic.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
The streamers aren't working towards any sort of collective well-being. Rather, each streamer is out for themselves, climbing over each other to take a slice from a pie that is only so large.
And you can see this too on Twitch. Like, this is one big difference between Twitch and YouTube, is that on YouTube there are so many viewers that there's an abundance that people don't feel the need to cannibalize each other's viewers in the same way that they do on Twitch. But on Twitch there's a lot more competitiveness because the market is more limited and discoverability is based off of popularity. So, for example, like, if I look at, like, my stream right now, where is it? Let me see, I can just pull this up on Twitch. If I look at it, it is beneficial for me, and I gain a passive advantage right now because we have the top stream on the entire platform. This is a big thing, and so there's a snowball effect that continues to happen. You see kind of what I'm saying? Should be a max 10K viewership. Well, what I'm saying is that the more people come in and the more people watch, the more you get discovered. So it just builds on itself and on itself and on itself. So yeah. It's also in real time? Yeah, definitely.
So many viewers on the platform
and so that increases the amount of competitive behavior. Chinese streamers are regional though. Twitch is global time zones. Yeah, but do you think, like, they're still fighting for the same simps? You realize there's only, like, maybe a handful of simps in China that are willing to give some random pretty girl $1,000. So they're all fighting over that same guy that wants to give a pretty girl $1,000. That's it.
Each of them with only so much budget for tips. For one streamer to gain a viewer's attention and tip is for another to lose it. And this individualistic zero-sum competition leads to the last juxtaposition, the appearance of individuality and its complete erasure. The point of streaming is supposed to be genuine connection. It's a platform for streamers to show their authentic personality and uniqueness for their fans to connect with. And each streamer here appears to try to do that. They're all dressed up, enthusiastic, and entertaining. But in reality, they've lost their individuality in their very attempt to show it. The reality is that they're all doing the same things in front of the same gears. This process of mass production of content has turned content creation into a commodity, and each streamer is one of many identical cogs in the content creation machine that churns out the same sort of...
This is the same problem that we have here in the West. There's a lot of streamers, like if you scroll down and you look for Fortnite streamers that have 70 viewers, you're going to see a lot of the same person. And it's the same thing as like ASMR streamers or anything else. Like they're all basically doing the same thing, because this is one other big issue that happens with streaming, is that because it's such a zero-sum environment, people try to copy each other and do the same thing better rather than take risks with more avant-garde content, because of the nature of the fact that discoverability, popularity equals discoverability, and discoverability equals popularity. So you always are focused on farming metas, and you're always focused on doing things that are kind of already proven successes rather than anything else. Variety's where it's at. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
MP4 files onto the influencer factory conveyor belt. Now, what's happened to the Chinese content creation industry is something I'll call rat racification. That is not a real word, but
it's pretty
I'm going to
obvious
use
what
it
that means.
to refer to this process of transforming otherwise creative and productive pursuit into zero-sum hustle. Content creation was a cool thing initially. It was a venue for creatives
And
to share their work, and people who resonated with them could start following them. It was sort of amateur and underground, and Asian parents had yet to agree that it was a real job. And then people started noticing how much money was in it and began to flood into the industry. There was enough financial reward there for some people to be willing to go to the extreme to win. Next thing you know...
like I've had a lot of people tell me, like they see like the fact that like my stream does well, and they're like, oh man, maybe I should stream too. And like I always tell people, like, if you want to go and start streaming, go ahead and try it, right? I mean, like you might as well. I mean, if you think that you can do a good job, like I thought I could do a good job, and I did. And so like there are going to be other people that do that too. But it is pretty hard to do that. And I think also another big issue is that a lot of the people that are successful do things that a lot of people that want to be streamers don't want to do. Like, for example, for me, I'm live every single day. I cover topics that I think are interesting to me, but I also focus on doing things that are interesting to my audience too. I try to follow trends, I try to listen to what people are saying, and I try to be entertaining all the time. I don't just simply turn on the camera and start playing a video game. Other people do that, and that generally has a lower rate of success. So really, when you want to succeed in something, you have to exceed your competition. And you have to do something in a way that's more compelling or interesting than other people. And so he said not to follow trends 10 minutes ago. Well, and that's the thing, is that a stupid person would say that, like, oh, but I said don't follow trends, but now you're saying do follow trends. A stupid person wouldn't be able to understand that distinction, but a person who will be successful will. And so that's not really my fault, that's yours. The point that I'm making here, though, is that in a lot of these cases, these streamers do have this problem, and they have a lot of problems like this, and a lot of them don't really have the opportunity to really grow, and they also don't take the necessary actions in order to grow. They're not, like, they don't do what they need to do in order to succeed. Basically, like, what I'm saying is that if you took a streamer council of me, XQC, Soda Poppin', Kai, and Hassan, and you put the 5 of us together to evaluate what streamers are good and which streamers are bad, we would have a lot of the same opinions, because there are commonalities that exist across all markets and all types of behavior. I'm just telling you, like, that's it. Lost me at Hassan. You might not like Hassan, but it's undeniable that Hassan has built himself a large audience, and he's successful at streaming. He is. And he does a lot of the same things that I do because I see him do it. You might not notice it, but I do.
The whole endeavor became a zero-sum rat race, something that isn't so different from the traditional rat race, like working at a bad office job with an exploitative employer. So you can sit in your street cubicle and do streaming work the same way you sit in your office cubicle and do
Yep.
paperwork. Just a different flavor of soul sucking, but your soul is getting sucked either way. This doesn't just happen in Chinese content creation, of course. In the West, for instance,
Yeah.
you can find courses online that teach you how to churn out basically garbage content quickly or even in an automated fashion so that
Oh yeah.
you can extract easy and fast income or even passive income.
That's
on
what people
social
try
media
and do all the
platforms.
time.
And this isn't
Like with repurposing and reposting clips and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's extremely common. And like what I'm saying is like a lot of the people that are bad streamers, the reason why isn't some sort of abstract luck reason. It's actually extremely defined and very easy to identify why someone isn't successful.
limited to the content creation industry either. Rat racification can and has happened to many industries. But personally, as a content creator, it is a shame for me to see the rat racification of my industry
Yep.
in real time and its effect on people. Since I started making content, I've made many YouTuber friends who have since quit making videos. Many of them have come to content creation with one expectation, and when that expectation wasn't met, they soon burnt out.
Yep.
Now, this is just
That's
a
what
personal theory of
Happens
mine,
to a lot of streamers too. It's super common.
but I think the rat race is a choice to some degree. I believe that it's possible to not participate in the rat race, even if the industry one is in is rat racifying in real time. In other words, just because other people in my industry are rat racing out of control doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do it too. Now, I'm not giving...
That's true. I think that you have a lot of streamers that exist outside of that spectrum. I think one guy who's a great example of that is Northern Lion. Like, he does follow trends to an extent, but he's not constantly trying to collab with every new streamer and do all this other new stuff. He kind of just stays in his own lane and does his own thing. And I think that if you want to build a long-term level of success, Forsen's another one who does that as well. Lyric is another one. You don't have to, but Lyric obviously, and all of these guys will capitalize on trends sometimes. Like, you know, Forsen, if there's a new game that has open voice chat and it's an open world game like Atlas, you can guarantee Forsen will be playing that probably on the first day. If there's a new, video game that comes out that's like a single player game, you can guarantee Lyric will probably be playing that on the first day. Maximilian, yeah, Max, if there's a new fighting game that comes out, Max is going to be playing that. And so all of these guys, they're not necessarily inside of the rat race, but they still have their areas of, I wouldn't really say expertise, but their areas of being prolific in, where like they very commonly make content in this way. It's the same as I used to be with niche. Yeah, they have their own niche as well, their own branding. Like I used to be like this with MMOs a lot. I've become less like this, but even now people still associate me with that for that reason.
career advice here, and I'm not saying what I'm doing is the only way, but just to use it as an example, I had a friend who asked me this once. He said,
Yeah.
Louis, look at these big YouTube channels like Mr. Beast,
Yep.
right? They have much bigger
Real
budgets and teams of professional writers and editors. All you have is a camera and a keyboard, so how can you possibly compete?
Well,
Now, this is
always critical. It's again, like it's defeatist attitude. That's a loser attitude. Losers think like that. Winners don't think like that. Losers do.
Nice.
just my take on it. I
Alright.
don't think I am
End up
competing
more
with
because-
Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast makes great content, but the content he makes looks nothing like the content I make.
Yeah.
In fact, the only commonality between our content seems to be that we're
It's on
both
both on
breathing
YouTube.
while filming and maybe speaking in English. I'm looking for something more specific. I'm looking to create content that falls in the intersection between what I love making, what I'm good at making, and what people like watching. And this
Yeah, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. And a lot of streamers live inside of one of these circles or two of these circles, but success exists inside of all three of them.
intersection will be different for different creators, almost by definition. I
Yeah.
learned this from listening to Naval Ravikant, although I think it might actually be a variation of the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai. So feel free to look into these sources further if you're interested in this idea. I adopted the idea for YouTube, but the original is much more general and can be applied to pretty much any industry. The idea is that you should pick an endeavor that falls in the intersection of what you love doing, what you are good at, and what people are willing to pay you for. Now, if someone is exclusively motivated by money, they will tend to ignore what they love doing. You'll push hard on what they are good at and what they will get paid for, and that is one way that you could get yourself into a rat race. If you're just
and you also burn out that way too. I see a lot of streamers do that, where like they constantly try to chase trends and do things in order to like and then eventually it doesn't pay off for them, and then they get frustrated and stop streaming.
Think it out and hustling that you're not getting anything intrinsic out of the experience.
Not for you.
Display a phone number. The way you're probably most used to seeing is parentheses, area code parentheses, first 3 dash, last 4. That's not a numeric type because it has parentheses and dash. So if you want to display that way, we'd have to store it as a string. If you wanted just a numeric version of it, that's 7 digits. So I think we're in the lanes of actually thinking about it. So we could store it as an int, not a short. We could also store it as an unsigned int because phone numbers are negative. If we wanted to store coordinates, like if you were using GPS and you were like doing like some outdoors excursion, like hiking in the woods or whatever, going like climbing mountains, and you need to know like your coordinates for whatever reason, coordinates are often a high precision digit. So we could probably talk about double, not a whole number, because you just a whole number version. Probably approximately close, but not exact. Social security number for U.S. citizens is what 3-2-4. So 2 digits and 4 digits. Again, typically displayed with dashes. If you were storing it for whatever reason, it would be in the string. If you read out dashes, or like if you're like you sign up for a new phone service or a bank account, typically asks for your last 4 sometimes. Those last 4 could be stored as a short.
Refresh this. Come back down here.
This is the one you're probably. So match the long way. Asks for your last 4 sometimes. Those last 4 could be stored as a short because it's 4 digits opposed to 5 digits that short maximum would be. If you're doing something with data science, the way like I can't really think of a real example, but maybe like maybe chemistry, if you're working with like such fine-tuned numbers and you're trying to store it and calculate something within chemistry, you might be using Lilo. But these are important to know later on in the real world, along with my example of the magic ring game where once somebody getting a light broke past the limit of the type. and started displaying some negative version of the type. Question online is, yes, this file will be online on Discord if you join the channel. I would recommend grabbing it if you're not going to type all the notes like I have. Alright, for math operators, we have everything that we're used to. So we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and mod. This is the one you were probably not used to seeing. What mod or the percent sign does is it gets the remainder of a division problem matched to quotient. I.e., we have 9 divided by 4, the quotient would be 2, the remainder would be 1. Regular division will never display the remainder, only the quotient. This was not over here. Yes. Differing assignment operators is going to be plus equals, minus equals, so subtract equals. There's multiply equals, divide equals, and mod equals. There are different forms of the assignment operator that may be useful to shorthand some math. So math is a long way. As I put it on the whiteboard in the chat comments, you are probably used to seeing math like this. When in programming, it is result equals formula or equation. So it would end up being equals 2 plus 2 here. Also a note on self-reference. And x equals 3. In real world math, at least I haven't seen this, but I'm not a math person. The example of x equals x plus 2, where the x left or right of the assignment operator is self-referencing the old value, in this case, 3. What that breaks down to is new x equals old x plus 2. How that looks with the assignment operators, the new assignment operators, is down here. For x minus equals 3, this is the same as x equals x minus 3, or x times equals 5, it's the same as x equals x times 5, or x divided equals 3, so it's the same as x equals x divided by 3, or x mod equals 2, this is the same as x equals x mod 2. If you have any questions on the assignment operators or any of the types so far before I continue? Alright, moving on to style guides and notations. So style guides are going to be small documents that dictate how your project can and will be written. For the most part, we don't go into other aspects besides the notations like camel case or pastel case. So for camel case is where the first letter of the first word of your variable name / identifier is going to be lowercase when every other word, or every word after, every word after the first character is capitalized. This is a style guide thing that will let us know immediately that whatever we are looking at should be a variable. Next is going to be Pascal case. This is where the first character of every word in a variable name / identifier is going to be uppercase. This denotes class names, method / procedure / function names. So when we look at something that is written in Pascal case, we know it should not be a variable. We have any question on casing? All right, moving on to syntax errors. So syntax errors are going to be errors that actually appear in the error list of Visual Studio Code compiler you have to be using for whatever language you're using. And also, more often than not, I think this is going to be basically true for every language. It's going to be denoted by a little red squiggle under the code that you're written. So, syntax errors are denoted with the red squiggle under a line of code or appear in the error list of your IDE, Visual Studio, and the error list by default appears in the bottom left-hand corner of Visual Studio. We do not currently see it now. Would appear right here or my mouse circling where it says no issues found. If there was an error, like if I type in, we get an error here where it says identifier name is undefined.
Okay, we need to pause that real quick. Next. This will be next.
What this means is that I try to output a variable I have not created. The machine is not going to be smart enough to create it for me, and most of the time will not suggest suggest making it. It will simply say the error that I have above. There are many types of syntax errors, and you may not see all of them for years to come, but they will always appear with the red squiggle or in the error list. Next type is going to be runtime errors. So that's basically where your game crashes, your program crashes due to an outside factor normally. I'm going to create one after I get that type out. So a runtime error.
Alright. We need a moment. We're taking a break. Now we're on runtime errors.
So the last little bit is typically see Windows panel pop up, dealing with crash, and always. Most of the time, however, what's going to happen is Windows Studio will jump to some library where what you were attempting was using the code from that library, and what you wrote does not work. So the crash will typically say something along the lines, this is in layman's terms, not exactly, hey, what you're doing does not work what we're trying to do, and it will basically say why, and show code from the library, and the code from the library is alien, and it's not going to be very helpful at this point in time. It may be helpful to you later on, but the context, I'm going to put this here in notes, and the context that you should get is when you're running an application, you should have a mental note of where the application is in the code, and what I mean by that is, like, say you have 5 lines, and it's asking the user for their name, asking the user for their age, and then you try to do some math with their age without converting. Because every time you take stuff from the console, anytime you take stuff from the user, it always comes back as a string, and you just can't do math strings. It may concatenate, but it probably won't if you're trying to do a math equation with it, and that's going to result in runtime. So, we just have a mental note of where the program was in the code during the crash. And in that case, it's going to crash when we try to add a string and a number, so wherever we attempt to do that in code, that's where we should look. Okay, so an example of runtime error, hopefully recreating this. So we're going to create a string, and another string with the same name. Okay, so this is going to be a good example. We have two variables, of the same name.
Alright, we'll come back to this program.
And C++, this
No! See, this...
looks good.
Pause.
But isn't.
Pause. How many times do I have to press that, bro? What is that? Let me guess. Tab out. Thank you.
And one of two things going to happen here. Either we'll compile, and we don't have error when we hit that line, or we'll actually get a syntax error that wasn't caught during automatic build of the project. And what automatic build is, in some modern languages, like C#, when you type, you won't see anything happen. But the project builds so you do not have to go through the manual process of going to the build menu option and building. Question 1 is just a review. I have a review of the concepts that we went over during lecture and some extra stuff. Moving on, we're going to check this, and while I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking it's not going to be class, so this is actually an example of the syntax error, and if that's true, which it is, we're going to do the example of asking for variation trying to do some math to it. So, we will comment this out, and then we're going to prompt the user for their age. We're going to set up a variable for their age. We are actually I'm going to check that. Thinking about sending this out statement. Paste in that comment that I wrote previously, and then okay. So here we're still getting a syntax error. So my next example, which I know 100% is going to work, we're going to force the conversion. So we're going to comment that out just this line. And then after making our int, we're going to say converted age equals standard library, STY string int, and user age. Now, no errors, except for something that I probably have to clean from here. We get the name redefinition. So that's kind of what I mean by we're talking about the automatic building. We're getting the error of name redefinition multiple initialization, where I have string name and string name. It's commented out, but the language does not do a very good job of rebuilding itself. So more often than not, we find ourselves doing this, where we go to build and rebuild. And then if I pay close attention to the bottom of the string where the error list is, after I do that, error list goes away. So the language just doesn't do a good job cleaning itself. So now, I'm going to run this a few times to kind of show the runtime error. So first time is, we're going to run the application as intended, where we ask the user for their age, we're going to type in an actual number. We type in a number that can be converted, so it works. No runtime error. However, please enter your age. In this case, you saw Visual Studio jump somewhere. We do not have a Windows pane, and it didn't actually change the active window to Visual Studio. So, unhandled exception at that memory location, so it's a text decimal thing, in the data demo.exe, which is a Windows executable file. Microsoft C++ exception, standard library, invalid argument, memory location, which is memory location. So a bunch of garbage that doesn't really mean anything to us right now. If we just know contextually, hey, last thing I did is I tried to force a conversion, and the user didn't type a number. So, like what we're talking about in the slides, this forces a conversion. It's either yes, it happens, or no errors. So this is a form of runtime error because the user typed in something that was not converted. Same thing, if it closes out, please enter your age, and they type in just a letter, even though a letter can be passed to an int. In this case, we are using the string int variable, or an variable method, to force the conversion of that string to that number. And in this case, we're using strings, not characters. It doesn't work. So that is an example of a runtime error. Just about that is the line is good. It just depends on which type when you test the application. String and string double, string outside long. Any of these string 2 methods is a bunch more. Force a conversion. We're not error handling. We're not data.
Saved it, right? Yeah. For somebody else not minding their fucking business. Take time with these people. Oh no. What are you guys doing right there? A full team just camping? You guys suck ass. The fuck y'all playing like that in fucking goddamn...
So we're not going through the process of forcing the user to type in something that we say. And there's things that we can do that will end up doing that. So a real world example is you sign up for whatever social media and it's asking for your email. A very base data validation for an email is if the @ symbol does not exist in that text field, someone will be like, hey, that's not a valid email address, type a valid email address. That's kind of what we're talking about here. These methods do not automatically do that. That is something that we as programmers have to account for and make ourselves. So when we're testing out these methods, which we're using most of them in Lab 2, make sure that the value is when you're not in Lab 2, because I'll explain a little bit better when we get to Lab 2. We provide the values, but when you're testing this out in your own examples, like in this, if you download this, if you're writing this along with me, that when you're testing this, you're typing in an actual number, like a numeric value, not a word, not a name, not the word 1, not the word 2, etc., a numeric value. And then, going on from there, we have logic errors. Logic errors do not produce an actual error, i.e. syntax error or runtime error that crashes the project program. These are lines of code that are of correct syntax. They 100% run, but do not yield expected results. The easiest to replicate right now, without going into other days' material, is essentially mislabeling variable names, i.e. we prompt for a first name, and we store it in a variable name, last name. And we can do the same thing for their last name and the first name variable.
Okay, alright, Biffers, okay, alright. What is that? Not now. No. No. God damn it. Fine, whatever. I just want to have fun with this. Bet.